welcome to the Retro Urban Show with me, Wayne. A slightly different show than normal today. We're going to go for the odd one out, as the title of the show is called. Normal format of the show will return next week. Unfortunately, I had to scrap part of the show and that left me late with production problems. So I had to do a show that I'd kind of already worked out a long time ago. And I thought, well, you know what? Why not put this to the test? It's a more factual show. A lot of you will know what I'm talking about, and a lot of you would have played some of the games that we are now famous for, the Spectrum. Odd one out. What do I mean by odd one out? Well, you're going to name a few different games that could be classed as the odd one out. Odd one out. And the games we're talking about is where you get a game of a certain type, and it's say the first one's the same, the second one's the same, but the third one, it's a completely different format to the game. Now, if you're buying a game that you're used to and you want the same format but to follow on, it might throw you. Sometimes for the better and sometimes for the worse. We're going to look at some really good classic games here, and some of the best games that actually came out for the Spectrum. This is all a mania of a billion. And of course today's show is going to be run on the Engo clone of the Spectrum. Next we have the toast rack back in action with the AY sound in the background. So we're going to go for one of the more famous games. Please read the message on the screen. If you could subscribe and help support this channel, it'd be great. I really do appreciate everybody who's been behind me, and we'll see what we can do to help this channel to grow. So please like, share and subscribe. Let's go with a mole as our first one off the bat. First game we've picked for a trilogy of games, and sometimes there was more than just three trilogies. What I'm saying is you get the same game. For instance, let's have a look at Pajama Rama, 3 Weeks in Paradise, Everyone's a Wally, Herbert Dummy Run. That was the same game all the way through, and each game probably had a little game built within it for you. Pajama Rama had a little Space Invader where if you completed all the scenes you'd get extra life, but you'd probably lose 3 or 4 lives trying to get that extra life. And this is the first one on the radar. This game, I loved it, and it was quite famous. In fact, it was one of Peter Harrop's great loading screen. Zero colour clash on the loading screen, and that would have been the loading screen. A very patriotic bleeper sound as well. And of course, while he was loading, you know, he's got a little eye winkling, and there's a reason for that as well in the actual game sprite itself. It is indeed one of the most famous platformers that actually came out for the Spectrum. People were saying it was a bit old act platformers, but you know, we loved them, didn't we? Only certain magazines didn't. Crash loved it, and that means I loved it too. So let's have a look at this game. I'm going to use the Kempston as I've got the Kempston ready to go rare and rock and roll. And of course, it was basically a parody on the miner strike that was going in the early 80s. And the guy that's chasing you could be a parody of the miner lead, the union leader Arthur Scargill, miner leader. And yeah, it was a great game. I love the sprite, and I didn't think it was such a hard game. There are some that don't like it. Personally, I thought it was a simple enough game to get out of. Once you played it a few times, you learn the patterns. The only thing you couldn't learn the pattern was the crusher. The crusher was completely random, but there was a way to sort of time the crusher. If you notice, sometimes the crusher does a double drop down. If you can avoid, just walk through it just after the double drop down, the double crush movement, or indeed just go for it. There you go. There was a double crush movement there, and I went too early. Stumbling over my words again. There we go. Right. So that wasn't too hard to get past, but you know, because that was completely random, a lot of people didn't like it. And you didn't just have to collect coal. For instance, if you collected this, you could either collect something that was falling, but it was probably more beneficial to collect the candle because you wouldn't die trying to collect the last bit of coal from this previous room. Graphically, if you look, he's got an eye this side, well that's his eyeglass, and of course you can't see his eye that side on the sprite, which I love it. His movement was, his legs are just waving in the air, flapping around, and he just done a straight jump. Beautiful use of all the sprites were, you know, well done. And of course the death sequence and the death sound of the sequence was the most annoying because it took ages if he was at the bottom of the screen to rise to the top of the screen. So let's have a look at the follow-up to this particular game, but we won't completely keep with the order that we're reviewing them in. We're not reviewing them, having a look at these games, and we'll come to the odd one out in a minute. Next game was a follow-up, which was a sequel to the first game, and it was absolutely brilliant. There was a slight difference in the game as the autofocus catches up. There was 3 loading screens, once again, by Peter Harrop. It was in his youth at the time, and he came up with this particular game. To start with, of course, you'd have to select the right items, and of course, let's just turn that down to. This was the hardest part of the game, was timing that between the bleeps of the music, because it was a bleeper sound. So you'd select that. First of all, you'd have to get your freedom kit, which I remember was 2. I think it was 4. I can't remember the other 2. I know the gas mask was 1. It did tell you to choose 5 objects. Was the battle one? I don't remember. But nevertheless, if you got them wrong, you couldn't complete the game. So what's different between this game and the first one? Well, nothing really. It's exactly what you got. You got a sequel. Once again, no eye, same sprite. There's a difference with the sprite in his movement. Instead of him having shuffling feet now, he did a fantastic gamble. And of course, these were the days where you didn't have any... You couldn't change direction in mid-air. So once you was going that direction, there was no reversing your decision, which made the game mechanic interesting. As always, the return of the random crushes was always a thing. This time you're collecting, well, looks to look, number 5s could be 5 pences, maybe £5, who knows. But also in this game there was one or 2 other things that you had to do, if that's before I can get there, to help with points and money. I'm not going to do it, am I? I'm being impatient, aren't I? What I need to do is I need to wait till they both go down at the same time and run for it. Oh. Right, I've got to achieve this with my naming. That's all we need. We'll play the game, shall we? I'll catch up to where I got to before. This is where I was going tragically wrong. Oh, and I'm still going tragically wrong. The game is not necessarily hard. It's all about good timing, and that wasn't what I had there. Once again, we got a random crusher. Oh, and one little pixel too close and you was done for. But there was a worse aspect to the game to that, and that was the fact that you could collect that dynamite there and you would probably die as well. So let's have a look at another Monty Mole game, but there's the same genre type game. Well, let's go to number 4. You recognise a quality loading screen coming up. Yeah, you get that to start with in the 128k version of this game, Vida Saint Monty. Once again, it's a platformer. Slight difference in this game, there was a part of the game that changed. Excellent loading screen, and the way it would load was great. And once again, no real colour clash in the loading screen. There's Monty trying to jump on the plane, which was an aspect in the game where you'd be flying a plane because you get airplane tickets which could take you to various parts of the game map. So let's have a look at this game in action. First thing you notice on the 128k version was the absolutely phenomenal AY tune, which is awesome. Music was brilliant. Jay Adams was responsible for that. Peter Hallop and the team from Gremlin Graphics would have been the main coders, and you had a little bit of an animation this time with what looked to be, which was the craze at the time a little bit, was breakdancing. Monty Mole actually doing a little bit of breakdancing at the top there. Can't talk yet. Iconic sound, isn't it? Absolutely brilliant. So the game was basically the same as the other two games, and we're going to play it. So you collect items from score as well as money. You had the return of the random crushers. You go around collecting all these money in order to be able to buy it. Well, once you got enough money, you had enough money for your little island at the end. That was the whole object of the game, but there was other things that you could pair to add extra cash. It wasn't just about collecting all of these rather large, and the largest of the sprites for the cash. Before it was coal, then it was money, and this is sort of, well, it's easy. Well, actually, is it EC? Is that like European currency? I don't know, maybe it is. I'm so used to playing this with the keyboard that when it actually comes to actually playing it with the joystick, I ain't no good. Sacre bleu! I'm going to leave the screen and leave some cash there. And of course then you get your air ticket, which allows you to fly once you come across an air terminal, that is. And you can get drunk as well, which means whatever way you press, you have to wait for them to sober up, shall we, with the alcohol, which could be quite deadly. There were extra lives dotted around various screens, for instance that one up there. However, if you wasn't too careful, you'd probably lose more life trying to get that extra life than you were. Well, not this particular one, because it was fairly easy. You just jump to the top and then just work your way down. But I want to stop there because if we went too far, that little guy would get you. So, brilliant game, brilliant graphics, lovely variation of sprites, quite a large map to be honest. And this was probably the last one of the 80s, but it wasn't in this sequence. There would be your air ticket, you could jump on, if you could get up to there, you could press enter, and of course you could fly to another part of the screen, which I think we'll avoid that one because I'm about to die. And the further on you get game you get, the closer. Oh, you need him to shoot himself, don't you? Anyway, that's game. So what was the odd one out? Well, for those that know the Spectrum will probably know this game. A complete change of direction. I'm going to hit the 48K version. Monty is innocent. Strange enough, Monty is not playing this. Sam Snout is all stout. The Great Escape tune is, you know, is sort of playing in the background. Horrible bleeper sound. We'll go for the Kempston. And of course it's no longer a platformer as you know it. It's more of a sort of trying as a 3D effect. Complete change of the game itself. Ridiculously hard. And I hated it, I'll be honest. Compared to what the other two was before this one came out. I mean, I've got to go up that ladder, haven't I? I'm sorry, Rape. But it was a complete change in direction. It's not what we wanted because we was quite happy with the Monty Mole platform games. Each one were really good. So this didn't fit in. And it wasn't the only type of game that decided to change direction from a winning formula. Hence the reason why it didn't do so well. followed by Elvida St. Monty, became a better game because we was back to where we begin. A platformer that we sort of grew up with. Was I disappointed with this game? 100%. I've never liked it to this day and I never will. But there are some people that would like playing it, but it was never to my flavour. I just thought it was rubbish. But that's my opinion. So let's have a look at another trilogy of games where it started out really well and then sort of went really wrong. Yeah, this was the first one and it was absolutely brilliant. You know it as Renegade. Came out, well, 1987, Imagine, and awesome loading screen. That just looked great. Slight bit of colour crash on her black trousers. You could see it was slightly yellow, but nothing to worry about. It was only the loading screen. But that sold the game straight away, and the guy is almost as ripped as I am, which is good to see. Honest. Well, I've got a six-pack. It's just sort of the six-pack that I've developed over the years. But this game was indeed a fighting game, a street game, a street brawl game, if you like. But it was one where you was fighting multiple opponents. We're going to have a look at this game now. I'm going to divine the keys because I prefer to use the keyboard. So, yeah, you've loaded the 1-to-AK version. It was basically a beat 'em up where you killed all... Oh. I hope I don't jump off the edge here. Now the big boss man's going to come because I'm doing so well. So what I'll do is I'll just... Oh, I'm going to get killed before I can kill him. So, yeah, let's just kick him off the edge. Quick way of getting him is to see if you can get around the back of him. You've got a certain time limit to do this in. I didn't hit too hard, to be fair. Oh, I was trying to get on him and beat him up. And then once you've done it, you move on to the next level, which is a great game. The follow-up to this was just as good. Oh, this is the hard bit with the motorbike, isn't it? Wait till I'm in the right. Hopefully you can time your jump well. If you don't, you get crushed. This game had a glitch in it because you could, if you didn't get these, you could end up getting stuck in one position. I've just lost a life of mine. And this could be the glitch here, where it suddenly stops and nothing happens because you didn't get them. But as long as you kicked them off the motorbike, you was able to carry on with that. Let's have a look at the follow-up to this particular game. Target Renegade. What a game this was. Yes, why not? Oh, dictionary wrong. Let's try a different way. Great loading screen on this one. Remember that? What a fabulous loading screen. You also had the countdown timer by Imagine, the follow-up from 1988. And of course you had the list of the music encoders are on the screen. But it's the same as the first one. Slightly different, a couple of extra moves. But in the way you change over scenes was slightly different as well. It starts on the subway, of all places. We're going to get straight into the game and have a look at it now. So we return to this game. Great 128k sound music. And of course the music gets switched off as you define the keys. Same order as before. Down becomes before up. And, oh, you have to define player 2's keys. Because it was a two-player game, which I'm not going to be playing two-player, obviously. We're just going to play one player. Once again, it's slightly easier to knock the motorbiker off. This time, instead of being one level, you have to get further along the level. A bit like some of the more traditional beat-em-ups. excellent back kick on this. That was the key. Once you get them knocked over, I like to get the weapon as well. This is something the back kick was an awesome addition to the game. Made it pretty easy to kill them, to be fair. Although you wouldn't want to... I think you can move on now. Yep, bought as much. So yeah, you've got the same sort of game as the first one. Just like a follow-up, you've got more graphical scenes to go by. Once you kill all the bad guys, if you're going to hit them with a hammer as well, it ain't going to take too long, as long as you don't mistime it. We'll go in the lift, we'll go down the lift. Unfortunately, you can't take the weapon with you, which is a bit of a shame. And this time, got the dreaded motorbike back. And we made light work of him. And you could do that as well, you could just jump on top of him and beat him up. I don't know if you could have done that in the first one. Make light work of them, finish them off quickly. They'll always try and go towards the hammer if you manage to knock it out, so it doesn't take too long to destroy your opponents in this particular game. We can move on to the next screen quite comfortably before we go down another elevator lift. This is going to be super easy. So you go through 5 particular stages like this, possibly 6, where you get to the end and you meet the big boss, and if you've got a snooker cue or a pool cue, it could be, you get to take him on and hopefully win the day. It gets tougher, of course, because the opponents can kill you with one blow, especially the big boss. Let's have a look at the final game in this trilogy. Could this be the odd one out? Such a brief look at the loading screen, it was unable to get through. This was the last game of the Renegade 3, the final chapter. What do you find the keys? And for some unknown reason, instead of being in modern day times, and we have got music for this one. I've used the 48K version on this occasion, just to show you the bleed of the sound. Press play on tape. Okay, we will do. Stop the tape, that was quick. We're going back in time. But this is absolutely nothing like the first few Renegades at all. In fact, it's almost a completely different game. Different sprite size. I mean, don't get me wrong, it wasn't bad done, but it's not what we wanted. Well, not what I wanted in particular. It's almost a different game. You could go up a level, climb up a level, walk across the screen, of course. Avoid the birds. And I think you could kick as well, couldn't you? Yeah, the kick was terrible. Look at that for a kick. No flying kick. Where's the flying kick gone? And the bird would drop those little monsters which would come across, and of course then you'd have to jump over things as well, wouldn't you? So the jump was basically up, forwards and left at the same time, wasn't it? Yeah. Hopefully they wouldn't go too far. But once again, it's not, to me, this is not Renegade. It's almost a different game. I mean, it's not bad. It's just not what I was used to. All of a sudden, taking Renegade from out of the street punk fighter situation, putting him in a prehistoric situation, well, that's not what I wanted. It's, you know, and of course, before you can go any further, I think we couldn't do the flying kick on this one. I think we lost the aspect. We just had downward punch and kick, and that was it. And I mean, that almost looks as pathetic as that kick from the rat that you had in, what was it, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. The rat was in the cage. It was the most pathetic little bit of puppetry I've ever seen, and it could have been done better. So, was all the third games, or the odd one out games, as bad as the others? Did every game have a bad odd one out, or was there actually a game that had one that was maybe odd one out, but pretty good? Well, let's have a look at the next set of games. And remember, the next set of games is meant to be all 3D. The next set of games was by Classic Ultimate Play the Game. Each one of these games was done in a 3D version. And the first one, believe it or not, although it looks like it's 2D, was meant to be 3D. What game are we talking about? Well, we're going to go straight for number 4. We're going to have a look at the loading screen. You'll know it instantly. Sabre Wolf by Ultimate. Fantastic logo. And we'll get rid of the bleeper sound. Let's have a look at this game. What do I mean? This isn't 3D, this is a 2D game, is it? Oh, you start in this room, so you may not realise it, but actually it is 3D. So if you look at the top screen, right, and if you take too long on the screen, you will notice that the top layer is small, the second layer is slightly larger, and the bottom layer is larger still, which is meant to give an illusion, avoid the fire, they will get you, meant to give an illusion of 3D. The mechanic was fine, the idea was great, but it was one of the early 3Ds. Oh good, I'm glad I got my life back. What let it down was the fact that the sprite was always going to be the same size. Now if the sprite was smaller at the top and got larger towards the bottom, then it would have given more of an illusion. People would have cottoned on it was a 3D game. But the further away you are, the smaller the objects became, and then larger here, and of course large at the bottom. And what you'd have to do with this game is run around collecting 4 pieces of the Sabre Wolf amulet, which, you know, could be random placed everywhere. Indeed, it was a quality game. 4% or whatever. Shall we have a look at the sequel to this? Did we shall? What game are we talking about? The follow-up to that was indeed, we're going to load the 48K version. Cracking loading screen. Oh, you can recognise it already. Night Law! An isometrical game, but yet it was done in the 3D way. That's nostalgia right there, isn't it? That brings back the memories. And the classic when you started the game was. So yeah, you had an isometrical game. Once again, it's the same game, but this time done in 3D. And you remember you have to jump over various objects. You need to collect things in order to jump over some objects. And using a joystick is not going to be easy. And, well, it would change from normal man to the Curse of the Wolf, which was the idea of the game. And there was many games that came out that were isometrical. After this was the first. I first played this on the BBC Micro at school, believe it or not. And I thought it was brilliant. And I wanted to have a BBC Micro from then onwards, only to find out that it was actually better on the Spectrum. Same game, more colours. You know, BBC Micro's version had 4 colours. This had all the colours, all 7 of the colours, and yeah, it was a fabulous game. Fabulous game. A little bit annoying because you could be in, like, for instance, now if I was to go through that gate when it opens, he's about to change. And he could change and get stuck in the worst possible place possible if you didn't watch the sun and the moon are rising. So there was a few games like this, and one could say, well, no, these don't really fit into that genre. No, well, they do, because they was all meant to be 3D. So what's the odd one out? But in this case, the odd one out is no worse. In fact, it's all the better for it. The same character, in his final reincarnation, after this one, remember we had Saberwolf, Nightlaw, and here comes the odd one out. Once again, classic 48K Spectrum mode is selected, Underworld. Why is this the odd one out? Well, there's a reason for that, and the reason is it's a platformer. It is only in really 2D. Of course you have to collect, I forget which buttons to collect, isn't it? Is it enter? Oh no, enter, that's it. Once you got your weapon, yeah, most frustrating mechanic of course was trying to get where you need to go to. For instance, if you fell down this hole and you didn't know what you was doing, you was pretty much stuck. Well, that was lucky, wasn't it? For instance, the fall too far could be a terrible thing. There's an extra life there, but don't bother going for it. There was ropes to cling from. Use the bubbles to get to the top if you wanted to. You needed to get as low as you can into the underworld. You needed a different weapon to kill a guardian or creature, a sprite basically, that was guarding each level's exit and entrance. This was the most frustrating thing as well, this rope, because you only had to have one creature, one of those little sprites there, attack the rope and it would cut it, and before you know it you'd fall, or they'd knock you off. Sorry, they'd knock you off, wouldn't they? But once you got to the bottom it was good. You could return, the rope would still be there, which is good. Getting on the balloons could be a bit of a nightmare. You just had to do two types of jumps, to be fair. That's it, we're up there. Frantically holding your hand on fire, hoping that you get them before they knock you off. And, dumb. I don't know how I didn't lose a life there, to be honest. So yeah, but this wasn't necessarily worse for it not being the same as the other two. It was just a different concept of the game. But it was a great game nonetheless. There you go, I did die in eventually. So there we go, 3 games where there was always one that sort of broke the mould of the other 2. Well, you could say that Nightlaw and Saberwolf were 2 different games, yes, but they was also made to be looked in 3D. This one does sort of have a 3D view to it at the start, where you can see the roof coming in and the floor going across, but the majority of the game is only 2D. And that's it for the Retro Robin show for today. It was a simple, quick video underlining the difference in games where one game doesn't fit into the genre of the other 2, or 4, or even more, shall we say. Hope you enjoyed today's show. Remember, please leave a comment on the comment section if you can think of any more games that were 2 the same and suddenly changed directions into a completely different game. Well, really, we just wanted more of the same. Imagine Manic Miner followed up by a Jet Set Willy racing game. Wouldn't be the same, would it? You know? So, yeah. As always, from me, Wayne Retro Robin's a bit of a shorter video than normal too. Hope you all enjoyed watching. Remember to like, subscribe and share. And we'll be back to our normal format next week. In the meantime, depending on when you watch this, have a nice working week or weekend, and bye for now.